That's a typical 6-year-old girl. It is now my extreme pleasure to invite one of our own, Perishable Manager April Barwick, from Store 365 in Abingdon, Maryland, and her daughter Amber and her family to the stage. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. My name is April Barwick. I'm the Perishable Manager at Giant 365 in Abingdon, Maryland. This is my husband, Ken. He works as the grocery manager at the Waverly store at 303. And of course, this is our daughter, Amber. Do you want to say hello?
Hello, everybody.
I also want to mention that Amber's aunt, my sister, is Sherry Swartz. She's one of the front-end specialists for Region 9. So look at Amber today. You'd never really know the journey she's been on in her short little life. To us, Amber's always been special. It took me and my husband 7 years to get pregnant with our daughter. She was an in vitro baby, so she's always planned and always wanted. She's our only child and the apple of our eye. And as you can see, she's beautiful, smart, and has a big personality. And the reason Amber's standing before you today is because of the Hopkins Children's Center. I never thought in a million years I'd be standing on this side of the podium. In years past, I've attended all the triple winter meetings and kickoffs. Would sit and listen to the stories of the families, and it was unimaginable for me to think that these families endured such trying times. I would swell up looking at the children, never really understanding what was at stake. And now I can tell you I understand. I'm very grateful for every day that I have with Amber. Every time I see her get on the school bus, every time I see her learn something new, and every time I hear her say, "I love you, Mommy." No one really understands why things happen the way they do, but I know the experience has made Amber strong and confident for the 6 years that she's been on this earth. One thing you'll notice about all the families with children that have cancer is we all have a date, the date. For us, our date was August 22nd, 2012. We received the worst news any parents could imagine. The pediatrician said, "We found a mass on your daughter's left side." Amber was diagnosed with Wilms tumor, a form of kidney cancer. I remember the day so vividly because everything seemed to move in slow motion. My heartbeat felt like it was going to come out of my chest. I was shaking from head to toe, and I'd never been so scared. The person that I loved the most was in trouble. Our pediatrician told us we had an appointment at the Johns Hopkins Children's Center the following week. And I remember telling her, "Call them back. We're coming now." Because you can't go about your life and function. You can't cook dinner. You can't do laundry. Or any of the things that you think you can do every day in a normal day. We drove directly to the pediatrician's office to Johns Hopkins Children's Center, and we didn't go home for 8 days. They admitted her within hours of arriving, and it was worse than we thought. After a series of tests, we met with a team of doctors that presented Amber's treatment plan. As you can imagine, my husband and I struggled to keep up our emotions with the circumstances. Dr. Klein was Amber's doctor who would look after her progress over the next 3 years. She kept us grounded when emotions were running high, and thank goodness for her, because she was always the voice of reason. Dr. Klein handled us with care and professionalism, and we were also assigned a social worker, Ms. Kathleen, who counseled us and got us in touch with many charitable organizations. It was determined Amber needed surgery to remove her kidney. The morning of the surgery, my husband decided to take a walk around the hospital to decompress some. I stayed with Amber. We've been up all night crying and talking, dreading the morning, quite honestly. We couldn't believe it all happened in less than 24 hours. Dr. Lucas, our surgeon, Amber surgeon, came to the room, and he told me that Amber's cancer was also in her lungs. He didn't know if the tumor was attached to an artery, if it had burst, if they were going to remove it, or if they were going to have to leave it in, shrink it down, and have her endure another surgery. We didn't know if it had spread to her lymph nodes. I thought, how much worse could this get? I was panic-stricken, and you could see, I'm sure the doctor could see in my eyes that I was so distraught. But I always remember what he said to me. He said, I'm going to do my best for your little girl. He said, when I come out of surgery and I walk into the waiting room, he said, look at my face. If I'm smiling, you'll know we got it all. He said, I know the walk across the waiting room can seem like an eternity. I thought how lucky we were to have this man taking care of our child. We sat in the pre-op area, waiting to be called, and because Amber was so young, they let her drift to sleep in my arms. I carried her down the hall and I put her on the operating room table. And believe it or not, at the time, I didn't cry. But I couldn't believe what I was doing. We waited for 3.5 hours in the waiting room. I looked up and I saw Dr. Lucas enter the waiting room. He smiled, and I cannot tell you the relief I felt. Without any words, he gave me the best gift I ever received, my daughter's life. To this day, he will always be the bravest man I ever met, because to do what he does every day is an absolute miracle. To be that brave is unthinkable. Without surgeons like Dr. Lucas of the Johns Hopkins Children's Center, so many families would be lost. And Kenny and I are extremely grateful. And we could never thank Dr. Lucas enough for doing the best for our little girl. After 2 weeks from recovering from surgery, Amber started radiation treatments and 33 weeks of chemotherapy. After 2 treatments, most of her hair fell out. It seems like a small price to pay, but to Amber, that was how people identified her. It was the first thing that people would say when they met her. What beautiful curly hair you have. But trying to explain why things were happening to her 3-year-old was unbelievably difficult. And Kathleen, our social worker, was helpful in presenting books we could read Amber, not just about our hair, but about our emotions. Every clinic visit would start with checking vitals. Amber would show up to the clinic in her best Hello Kitty outfit and her best little girl jewelry. She was great at expressing her little style, with sparkly clothes, crazy glasses, and beautiful headbands. And Miss Shantae, one of the techs who's always there when Amber visited, she was also a big Hello Kitty fan. She bonded with my daughter, and she would sit and talk to Amber, and to this day, Amber still calls Miss Shantae her Hello Kitty lady. You never know who's going to be as nice and comforting to your child, but you're grateful when they do in circumstances like this. We learned that telling the truth, no matter how difficult it would be, was the best thing we could do to prepare Amber for all the procedures, tests, and needles. And when you're 3, needles are the biggest fear. Like most kids, Amber had a cord in her chest to receive her treatments. Miss Lisa, as Amber's nurse, was the most patient and calm person. When Amber was scared and crying, Miss Lisa took control of an extremely stressful situation. And then we met Miss Jenny in the clinic. When we met Miss Jenny, she had bubbles and an iPad with Minnie Mouse Bow Maker app. And every time Amber was accessed, someone came into the room with toys or whatever diversion we needed at the time. And this is the Child Life Program. Amber went from an hour of crying to 5 minutes in 6 weeks. Most people know the Triple Winner Program provides money for research and medicine, but what they don't realize is there is a whole program dedicated to child life. The basic function of the program is to let kids be kids no matter what the challenges they are facing. Amber, Mommy has a question for you. What's your favorite place at the hospital?
Definitely the playroom.
Whether receiving treatments at the clinic or being a patient in the hospital, there's a playroom in both areas for younger children. It's filled with endless games and toys. There's a teen room, there's a music room filled with instruments for the kids to play. Child Life has many activities to offer at the Children's Center. The kids play bingo every Wednesday, and every child wants a prize. They have a great room where they host special events for Halloween and Christmas and other holidays. For both events, we witnessed tables where they had massive displays of toys and candy. And when I say tables, I mean you couldn't walk in the place. It was so overwhelming. For Halloween, all the kids were given costumes to wear and a place to trick-or-treat at the hospital. They even had American Girl dolls to give to the children's families for Christmas. Child Life understands the hardships families endure. Many families struggle to pay bills. Not to mention to provide Christmas presents for their sick children and their siblings. And anyone who's ever been at the hospital knows about the clowns. They go from room to room entertaining the kids, doing funny skits just to make them laugh. They're endless. Build-A-Bears, blankets, toys, crafts, prize boxes, and all these things make it tolerable and possible for families to keep moving forward. You can't imagine the torment watching your child endure so much misery and not being able to stop it. But knowing that people are there that care and understand what they need is priceless. They not only want to mend their bodies, but they want to raise their spirits. At times it was difficult to keep Amber on a normal schedule because of side effects of chemo. And I remember one night Amber wanted to play a piano keyboard and the batteries were dead. Well, when you know somebody showed up at 3:30 in the morning just for her to play the keyboard. When Amber wasn't in the hospital, we had to take precautions to keep her safe from germs. She couldn't attend nursery school, she couldn't play with the neighborhood kids, and just touching a hand rub could put her in the hospital for 10 days. Well, my husband found the strength to go back to work in October. Amber and I were isolated quite a bit. We constantly washed our hands and wore masks all the time if there was a risk. I can recall my husband coming home one day in January telling me, "I think I'm okay. I can't cry anymore." It's strange to think that parents could be okay with your child having cancer, but it becomes a way of life for us. For a while, when we went to the clinic, Amber didn't even want to come home because she loved the playroom so much. It was the only time she got to play with other children. And the thing in between all the treatments and the blood transfusions was that Amber just kept playing through it all. It was the thing that allowed our family to go on. In February, we could see that Amber was starting to improve and the chemo was running down in her body. And by May 1st, she was cancer-free. When a child finishes chemotherapy, the clinic has an end-of-chemo party. The child gets to pick any kind of cake they want, and everyone there sings to them. It's a special time because the families feel like they have a new lease on life. And by the way, Amber picked a Hello Kitty cake. Amber is now 6 years old and in kindergarten. She's learning to read, and she has a pet guinea pig named Olaf, along with her dog Angel and her cat Cleo. She likes to play with her dolls with her mom, and she likes taking classes for swimming and gymnastics. Her favorite little animal is a hand puppet named Birdie. Her papa bought her when she was 6 months old. If you ask Amber what she wants to be when she grows up, you'll get a different answer every time. The top picks right now are a doctor, a teacher, and a firefighter. But I love the fact that she believes she can do them all. Amber believes everything is better with glitter, and her outlook on life is unshaken. Recently, she made me a peacemaker for her kindergarten class for showing a very caring attitude towards her classmates when they're having a sad day. Her teachers describe her as a very sweet, compassionate little girl and an absolute joy to be around. Amber loves to come to Giant, go shopping. She fills up her little green shopper and training shopping cart, fills it up with grapes and strawberries and Hello Kitty fruit snacks. The Johns Hopkins Children's Center saved our daughter's life. And there's nothing we can say other than thank you, but it's not enough. I know Dr. Small spoke earlier, but he's always around. He's more than just what you see here. He's a very compassionate man and has a way of comforting the families, and he always makes time. Even though he's a very busy man, he always makes time for the families. So we want to thank him and the entire pediatric oncology team. We thank you for all your time and your commitment to the Triple Winner program in the past and in the future. I hope I was able to shed some light on what they actually provide at the hospital. And I wanted to say that I asked Amber what she would say to other kids who were battling cancer. And Amber's answer was, stay calm and you'll get through it. It's hard to believe a 6-year-old can tell you to stay calm. Even before I came up here on stage, she said, don't worry, Mommy, you're going to do fine. You're going to do great. So now she takes her own advice when she gets blood tests and scans and does really well. Penny and I are very proud of Amber. She's not only a cancer survivor, but she's a walking, talking miracle and the reason why we breathe. I think Amber wants to try to say something.
Thank you for donating money to the Johns Hopkins Children's Center. We need to raise $1.6 million. Can you do it again, please?